GBNews News Channel.
Good evening, it's 9 o'clock on television, on radio and online in the United Kingdom and across the world. This is Mark Dolan Tonight. In my big opinion, electric bicycles and scooters are out of control as a 2-year-old child is almost killed by a cyclist on an e-bike. It's time something was done about these death traps, which are bringing misery and chaos to Britain's town centres. That is my big opinion in just a moment. And very sad news tonight. A titan of Scottish and British politics dies suddenly at the age of 69. Alex Salmond, remembered this evening in the company of the former leader of the SNP in the House of Commons, Ian Blackford. Also tonight, my Mark Meets guest grew up in a council house and left school with no qualifications. He became one of Britain's most successful entrepreneurs and chairman of Huddersfield Town FC. Graham Leslie, CBE, tells me his incredible story shortly and reveals how you can make your first million. And in my take at 10, Meghan Markle says she is one of the most bullied people in the world. But with serious bullying allegations against her, is she the queen of double standards? I'll be giving my unapologetic verdict on the woman known as Duchess Difficult. That's at 10. And tonight, my top pundits. A brand new star on Mark Dolan Tonight, political commentator Fleur Elizabeth, fearless journalist Nina Mishkov, and former Fleet Street kingpin Neil Wallace. Two hours of big opinion, big debate and big entertainment. Mark Dolan Tonight is your perfect Saturday night in. We have a golden rule on this show. We don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it. So a big 2 hours. Why e-bikes are a death trap straight after the news headlines and Katie Bowen.
Mark, thank you, and a very good evening to you. It's just gone 9 o'clock. These are your latest headlines from the GB newsroom. As you've been hearing this evening, the former First Minister of Scotland, Alex Salmond, regarded by many as a titan of Scottish politics, has died at the age of 69. He was reportedly giving a speech in North Macedonia this morning, and it's understood he died at some point after the event. Salmond was First Minister between 2007 and 2014, leading the SNP to historic victories, including a majority in the 2011 Scottish Parliament election. He was also instrumental in the 2014 independence referendum, a campaign that ultimately ended in defeat. Following his resignation as both First Minister and SNP leader, Salmond later went on to lead the Alba Party. Tributes are being paid across the political spectrum this evening to Alex Salmond. The Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, has said tonight that Alex Salmond was a monumental figure of Scottish and UK politics. He leaves behind a lasting legacy. The former First Minister of Scotland, Nicola Sturgeon, said a short time ago that she was shocked and sorry to learn of Salmond's death, adding, "I cannot pretend that the events of the past few years, which led to the breakdown of our relationship, did not happen. However, Alex was an incredibly significant figure in my life, and we formed one of the most successful partnerships in UK politics." Alba Party Deputy Leader Kenny McCaskill has said tonight that the party grieves the loss of their founder and leader, describing Salmond as the outstanding Scottish politician, not just of his generation, but for generations far before. And Scotland's First Minister and the leader of the SNP, John Swinney, has said tonight that Salmond worked tirelessly and fought fearlessly for the country that he loved and for her independence. In other news tonight, 100 days in, and Sir Keir Starmer admits it has not been smooth sailing. In a video posted on social media, the Prime Minister has been reflecting on Labour's landslide win in July, but acknowledged the choppy days since taking office. When asked if he thought his start had been successful, his spokesperson said it's up to the public to decide.
Today marks 100 days of my Labour government. Before that, 14 years of Tory failure. 14 years is a long time to cause damage. 100 days isn't much time to fix it. I will level with you. The scale of the damage is huge, but I will take the tough decisions. to fix the foundations of our country, to deliver the long-term change we need, the change that you voted for. The next 100 days starts now, and I won't waste a moment.
The Prime Minister there. And finally, for now, GB News can reveal that an average of 135 migrants have crossed the English Channel in small boats each day since Prime Minister Keir Starmer took office. Over 13,500 have arrived since the 5th of July. And today alone, more than 400 migrants made the perilous journey from France, pushing the total for the year to nearly 27,200. A Home Office spokesperson insists they're committed to dismantling people smuggling operations, saying the government will stop at nothing to bring these criminals to justice. Those are your latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Katie Bowen. More from me in an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Katie. Well, a very, very busy show to come. The once great and legendary political figure of Alex Salmond will be a topic of our big story in just a moment. Plus, Meghan Markle claims that she is the most bullied person in the world. Well, I'll be responding in a Take at 10 that you won't want to miss. But we start with my big opinion. Good evening. An e-bike rider who left a 2-year-old boy hospitalised after a collision has been let off by the police. The Telegraph reports that poor little Dylan Latham, just 2 years old, needed more than a dozen stitches to his forehead after being struck by a female cyclist on a public footpath at a playing field in Prestatyn, Wales. Despite the cyclist fleeing the scene, officers have decided not to pursue a criminal case after she eventually came forward. Now, the infant's mother is calling for tougher laws for battery-powered bikes. Darcy Gore told the paper she was livid that a prosecution was not being pursued, adding that she cried when she learned that officers had in fact handed the woman her bike back. Who can blame her for being angry? Now, whilst I'm a huge fan of cycling and appreciate the freedom that it gives people, as well as the environmental benefits and the fact that it's much cheaper than public transport, we've seen growing antisocial behaviour on bicycles for years, with lycra-clad lunatics, probably in the throes of a midlife crisis, jumping red lights, leaping on the pavement, and on tragic occasions, running people over. For example, 2 years ago, an 81-year-old called Hilda Griffiths was killed by a middle-aged male cyclist in London's Regent's Park. Despite the park having a 20-mile-per-hour speed limit for cars, the group that the cyclist had been part of were doing up to 29 miles an hour on a bicycle. That, according to GPS readings. These reckless traditional cyclists are bad enough. We've all seen them, haven't we? But the latest menace is electric bicycles, which are not so much a mode of transport as a terrifying weapon. Whilst the e-bike, which struck the aforementioned 2-year-old boy in Wales, was set to the legal limit of 15.5 miles an hour, that is still a colossal speed, particularly if the cyclist is on a pathway designed for pedestrians. To be struck by an electric-powered bicycle at 15 miles an hour is extremely hazardous, which is why we need to see prosecutions for people misusing these vehicles, because these awful accidents are going to continue to happen. As the former Conservative government minister Ian Duncan-Smith points out in the Telegraph today, Duncan-Smith himself tried to change the law. Writing for the paper, he said, "The problem is getting worse. The number of pedestrians hit by cyclists has increased by a third since 2020. In 2022, the most recent year for which figures are available, there were 462 collisions, and those were only the ones that were reported to the police." Now, I don't want to demonise cyclists. Taking to two wheels is good for your health and a miracle cure for congestion in our great cities. And it's much quicker than the bus, which has to stop every 20 seconds. But with the freedom that cycling gives comes responsibility. They are road users, and it's time that they were treated as such. The criminal justice system should be just as harsh on cyclists as they are on motorbike riders and car drivers. Why not? The damage inflicted can be similar. And I think that we should have a national conversation about a bicycle registration scheme, so that if you ignore the highway code or break the law on a bicycle, you can be apprehended by the authorities and, in extreme cases, convicted and sent to prison. And perhaps some kind of insurance scheme should be made available, particularly on these electric bikes and scooters, which are effectively motor vehicles. A minority of cyclists have become a public menace. They are spinning out of control, so it's no time to backpedal. To anyone wanting to put the brakes on cyclists being held accountable, I say, on your bike. Do electric bikes and scooters need insurance and some kind of registration scheme? Let me know your thoughts. gbnews.com/your say, and let me know if you've had any collisions with an electric vehicle. But first, my top pundits this evening. I'm delighted to welcome the former executive editor of The News of the World, Neil Wallace, writer and broadcaster Nina Mishkov, and political commentator and a brand new star on Mark Dolan tonight, Fleur Elizabeth. Great to see all three of you. Fleur, have you ever been on an electric bike?
Yes, and I really do love them. So I used to live in Bristol, and with the hills in that city, when they brought in the e-bikes, it made the world of difference to my life, because I wouldn't be sweating, climbing up hills every day in summer. But I think it's right that they are out of control. I have also been hit by one. And it's the people, not the bikes, that are the problem.
Yeah.
But that's why I'm so torn on it, because they gave me so much freedom, but yet I've also been the victim of it.
Having ridden one, can you give us a sense, for those that don't know, of the power that you harness with these things? Because, I mean, I know it's not a motorbike, but 15 miles an hour is pretty rapid, isn't it?
It is, and also when you first start it, it gives this surge, so you kind of don't have much control over it at points. Yeah, it's so good for getting
It's a rapid, instant power, isn't it? I think it's what Jeremy Clarkson would call torque.
Yeah.
And it really bounces that thing along. What were the circumstances around which, when you were hit, what happened?
So I was on the pavement, and there was roadworks. So all of the cyclists, there were two big signs saying cyclists dismount at each end of the pavement. And it was quite crowded as well. And this guy who's on the phone whilst he's cycling just went straight into me, and then started screaming and shouting at me and swearing at me, and I won't repeat what he said. And I was just said to him, it says cyclist dismount there, and he's like, yeah, but the road works. I'm like, yes, but you are cycling on a pavement for pedestrians on an e-bike. Thankfully, I wasn't injured, but the reaction was insane. Like that, I think cyclists, I know you said you are one, include some of the craziest people.
Yeah, well, they are. I might put myself in that group. Was that person riding an e-bike? Was it an electric bike?
It was, yeah.
And you obviously felt, I mean, you can't be going that fast because you weren't injured, but you obviously felt quite an impact when he hit you.
Yeah, well, it went straight directly into me, and I was more sort of shaken and shocked at his reaction to it. But, I mean, if he had been able to gain the speed, then I could have been seriously injured. And this 2-year-old, like, they are so much more fragile.
Correct.
It's just yeah, out of control.
Or a pensioner or a disabled person. Nina, that person that hit Fleur should have a registration plate on the back of his bike and be reported.
I'm not going to argue with you on that. I've long thought that's actually the only sensible thing to do. The trouble with cyclists, not even talking about e-cyclists, is that they feel entitled. They think they're saving the planet, and that the laws don't apply to them. So you said it's a minority of cyclists that are bad cyclists. I disagree with you. It's the majority. It's rarely that you see a cyclist not going through a red light. And you're talking to someone who was knocked over by a cyclist on a pavement.
Is that right?
Yeah. I was walking down Gower Street in London, a great big one-way street. I'd been on a bus, and the buses were jammed, so I got off and started walking.
Yeah.
And it was dusk. And, but there was street lighting.
You're on the pavement. You ought to be safe on the pavement. Just like Fleur.
I was walking down the pavement, and there weren't there was no other pedestrians, and the cyclist came past, bang, like that, caught me, and I sort of fell into railings and did my ankle in so that I couldn't wear stilettos for nearly a year, and I still can't wear stilettos.
Goodness.
But no, I have absolutely no time for you know, the lycra-clad mob who terrorise the pedestrians. And so e-bikes are even worse. There's one ray of hope. There's news this week that Madrid, the authorities in Madrid, are going to ban e-bikes and e-scooters because they've become
right?
such a menace. Yes, and you know, the bike racks, many of them are in pedestrianised areas, so they are being put actually into conflict with pedestrians. They're mostly used by tourists because they said many Madrid people have their own e-bikes.
Right.
So the ones for hire are done, and tourists don't know the topography, the geography, and so they're complete menace.
Well, can I just say I'm so glad you're back in heels because they suit you terribly well,
Oh, well,
especially
thank you.
tonight's
But you can see
pink offering.
Yeah, but you can see it's a thick heel. It's not a stiletto.
There you go. Well, maybe next time. It's because you can't be trusted
No, I can't.
with a stiletto.
No, I can't. Oh, no, well, I'm very happy to carry them in my hand.
You'll use it as a weapon on Neil before the night is out. Neil, this is new technology. The law needs to catch up.
I think the law is a very long way behind it. I think it's a very long way behind the technology because one of the things about e-bikes is you talked in your piece about 15.5 miles an hour. That's the regulated machine. The problem is it is so easy to take that control off.
That's right. And you can go to a garage, can't you, or a bike shop,
if
and
you know
they
what
can
you're doing, you can do it yourself.
You do it yourself, and you can go 30 miles an hour
easily
with a little turn of the screw.
Easily. And it's not just that. I think I live in West London, and you see an awful lot of e-bikes, and they're exploding, I think, across cities. And one of the things about
and often they do explode, actually.
Well, that's another point. They're a massive fire hazard.
Lithium battery.
But the point being that you are getting a situation where young people in particular are using these bikes, and it's older people who actually just look and they think it's a normal bike. And I saw a video on Twitter the other day of a guy on an e-bike just going through a level crossing, hitting a woman and her child in a pushchair. Did you see that? It went straight up in the air. The woman's gone flying. The guy gets up and, just like in your case, just got back on the e-bike and cleared off.
Yep.
There is no control.
Absolute shocker. Well, look, your thoughts on this. Should e-cyclists and people with an e-scooter have insurance? Should they have a registration plate like cars? Let me know your thoughts. gbnews.com/your say. But time for the Great British Giveaway and your chance to win the equivalent of having an extra £3,000 in your bank account every month for the next year. A whopping 36 grand in tax-free cash. Here are all the details to make it happen.
This is your chance to win a £36,000 secret salary in the latest Great British Giveaway. That's like having three.
Coming up next in the big story, very sad news tonight. A titan of Scottish and British politics dies suddenly at the age of 69. Alex Salmond, remembered this evening in the company of the former leader of the SNP in the House of Commons, Ian Blackford. That's next.
Conservative MPs have finally chosen their top two for the leadership. And now, it's over to the members. Join me, Christopher Hope, on Thursday as Kevin Badenoch and Robert Jenrick are quizzed by Conservative Party members and myself at our GB News leadership event.
And afterwards, join me, Patrick Christie's, with a live studio audience and a star panel as we discuss what it means for the Conservative Party and what it means for you. Decision time, the race to lead, from 7 p.m. this Thursday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Right, we're having beans this morning.
Beans for breakfast. There's no better breakfast, is there?
I like beans on toast for breakfast.
So do I. I would actually call myself a baked beans connoisseur.
Would you? Well, we can put you to the test. Tell us what the story is.
The story is, you might think beans, you might think Heinz. Heinz means beans.
Beans means Heinz.
Beans means Heinz. Heinz means beans. Who knows? So, of all of the supermarket baked beans, it is actually the Aldi supermarket version, this version over here, which came out on top, the Bramwell's baked beans, 76% on the taste test.
And they're much cheaper as well.
Much cheaper. Households can save, if you're buying 2 cans a week, £100 a year buying the Aldi version of these baked beans. So we thought we're going to do a blind taste test this morning to see.
So we've got the Aldi beans, we've got M&S beans, and we've got Beans Heinz. So I think number 2 is the best one.
Yeah, I agree.
Right,
2 came first best to me.
So the Heinz is number 3.
Interesting.
Which was the worst one?
Which is the worst one, which is the ones, actually, I'll buy it home.
Do you know what? That's just proven it. M&S was number one. And Aldi was number two, which was our favourite as well.
I said M&S.
Yeah, and we both said Aldi.
We did say Aldi. I have to be honest, I was not expecting that.
I told you. This is a hill I will die on. These are the beans that I get at home and I love them.
At university, you get the tin that's half that size, and it was 21p for the store ones and 23p for Heinz baked beans. And as I say, the key was in the thickness of the sauce and how hard the beans were. They actually are really nice.
Stunning.
They're really. I am really surprised, and we buy more than 2 cans a week, so it saved me a couple of £100.
We get through 2 cans.
So you like the Aldi ones?
I like the Aldi ones. I'm shocked.
They're a lot cheaper. Yeah.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Well, a big reaction to my big opinion, in which I'm arguing that e-bikes and e-scooters are a death trap. They should have insurance and potentially a number plate. This from Gary, who says, Mark, cyclists on pavements are now commonplace. Last time I looked, it was illegal with a possible £500 fine if the police would ever do anything about it, which I think Gary is suggesting they would not. Shuti says, Mark, how about a tick box on your car insurance to say that you're an e-bike user and it's adjusted as such. Any accident will affect your no claims bonus. Wayne says, Mark, they're not cyclists, they're on electric vehicles. Cyclists pedal. I don't remember Mark Cavendish winning a tournament on an electric vehicles. Neil says, Mark, the so-called e-bikes are another spin-off of net zero lunacy. We'll keep those opinions coming. But first up, some very, very sad news indeed. It's time for the big story. And one of the most consequential politicians of his generation, the former leader of the SNP, Alex Salmond, has sadly died at the age of just 69. This following a speech that he made in North Macedonia. This icon of Scottish politics led the SNP to power in 2007 and served as First Minister until 2014. Following a fallout with Nicola Sturgeon, Salmond maintained his commitment to Scottish independence with the founding of the Labour Party, which he led until his untimely death. Well, let's get reaction to this very sad news from a man that knew him well, the former leader of the SNP in the House of Commons, Ian Blackford. Ian, thank you so much for joining us on this sad occasion. 69 is no age these days. Clearly a shocking loss for family and friends, but a huge loss to public life as well.
Yes, indeed. And I think, firstly, thoughts are very much with Moira, his wife. You know, the fact that Alec was away in North Macedonia, really trying circumstances for her, for his family and friends, and I think condolences to all of them. No, I mean, this was shocking. I'm very surprised when I heard the news late this afternoon. There's no question that Alec, as you've described, it was a titan not just in Scottish politics, but right across these islands. And he was elected to Parliament in 1987, one of only 3 SNP MPs at that time, and then led the SNP into government in the Scottish Parliament. And Mark did something that, in many respects, nobody thought possible, and that was to achieve an overall majority in the Scottish Parliament. Yeah. You probably know, I'm not sure about your viewers, that we have a system in Scotland of both first past the post and additional list members, and it becomes very difficult to achieve an overall majority. So what Alec achieved in 2011, the only leader of any party that has formed a majority government in the Scottish Parliament over its entire existence. And of course that was important because it was that majority that created the circumstances that then led on to the independence referendum. So outstanding leadership of the SNP to take us into government. And let's not forget, his legacy as the SNP remains in government today, 17 years after first being elected into that position in 2007.
Most definitely. Now, Ian, this is a man who famously stuck to his principles, a rare thing in politics these days.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, I suppose when Alec joined the SNP in the 1970s, I knew him back in that period. And after the 79 election, we fell to 2 MPs. We were at 10% in the polls. People didn't join the SNP for political advancement or a political career. You believed in a cause. In many respects, probably the SNP was more of a movement in those days than it was as a party. But all of us had that burning belief and desire that Scotland should be an independent country. And Alec was very much part of that and led that.
Tell me about Alex the man, if you can, Ian.
Larger-than-life character. I think many people in politics right across the divide tonight have reflected on his presence in the chamber. He enjoyed the cut and thrust of Westminster. He enjoyed the debate. And quite frankly, from his point of view, if he had the opportunity to put one over on somebody, then he would do that. He was a big beast. And I think someone that was very much respected, but he was a larger-than-life character. That often referred to as a cheeky chappie, and he very much was that. Very much a social being. He liked debate, he liked argument, he liked meeting people. Quite a gregarious character, a great degree of bonhomie, if I might call it that. But someone that, I suppose, lived life to the full in many respects, not just in politics, but in everything that he did.
Indeed. Well, I met him a couple of times and he was an absolute gentleman. Alex Salmond, Ian, was a gifted orator. And as you've mentioned, his charm and charisma were part of who he was. And of course, it was that force of personality that really helped the independent cause. He really carried this project through his own sort of will and determination, didn't he?
Well, he did. I think that's absolutely right. But I suppose, Mark, if you think about where the SNP was at that time, where the government was, going from being elected in 2007 to a majority government. And in many respects, the government was seen as being on side with the people of Scotland. There was a lot of goodwill towards the SNP, a lot of trust. And he benefited from that. But one of the things about Alec is that when the SNP went into government, we'd been in opposition for 8 years. But those that went into cabinet in particular were ready. He had a number of very loyal lieutenants, the likes of John Swinney, Nicola Sturgeon, so many others, not just those that were in the cabinet, but the backroom staff as well. His chief of staff, his head of communications, maybe something that Keir Starmer's learning about the perils of being in government today in Westminster. But he had a good team and he empowered that team. He trusted them. He delegated that to them. And it was the success of that team, led by Alec, that I think drove the success that he and the party and the government had at that time.
Now, Ian, you, if I may say so myself, were a steady hand at the tiller as leader of the SNP in the House of Commons, but the party north of the border in government have had troubles in recent years. Can you tell me about Alex Salmond's stint as First Minister? What kind of a First Minister was he all those years ago?
Well, he led from the front and he was very keen on delivering change. You know, for example, one of the big differences between Scotland and England is that we don't have tuition fees, and he very much led the charge on that. Of course, it was a different period. We weren't talking about the austerity we've had recently, the problems that we have about the fragility of the budget. So he was able to do a lot of things that went down well. Free personal care had already come in, but there were a number of initiatives. The Queen's Ferry Crossing, for example, delivered on budget and on time. So there were a number of policy proposals that were very well received by the Scottish public.
Indeed. Ian, he famously fell out with his partner in crime, Nicola Sturgeon. That was around a court case and allegations against Alex Salmond, which were then disproven. How painful a period was that for Alex, do you think? And how much of a loss was he to the party?
Yeah, I think it was a difficult period for all of us because the SNP, in many respects, was a family. And so there was a fracture of that party. And, you know, I think, you know, for me tonight in particular, when I'm reflecting on Alec, I reflect on the good things that he did, but there was that parting of the waves. There was no coming back from that. So there's a sadness in that to some extent, but that's part of political life. That's about the journey that we all go through. And I think the challenge for the SNP, some of the things we talked about, is to show that we can deliver on the priorities for the people, deliver on health and education and housing, show leadership, show that they're worthy of the trust of the people. We had a let's not beat about the bush. We had a terrible election result on the 4th of July. The public of Scotland has sent us a real message. There's a wake-up call to us. And we need to recapture that spirit, that leadership, that vision, and show that they're worthy of the trust of the people again as we enter that next election. So there's a big job for us to do.
Ian Blackford, a real privilege to have you on the show, and thank you for helping us to remember the late, great Alex Salmond. My thanks there to the former leader of the SNP in the House of Commons, Ian Blackford. But up next, after an abysmal start, will the next 100 days of this Labour government be even worse? What have we let ourselves in for? I'll be asking a top Labour insider live in the studio next.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. We've got plenty of fine weather in store across the UK over the next day or so, but as we head into the new working week, things will turn more unsettled. We'll see some rain developing at times, but all the while, those temperatures starting to climb as well. At the moment, low pressure is moving off the scene out into the North Sea. That's allowing a ridge of high pressure to build in from the west, so things starting to quieten down, but a bit of a chilly northerly breeze developing as well. And certainly as we go into the overnight period, we'll hold on to quite a few showers in that northerly airstream across the north and northeast of the UK. Some wintry showers across the high ground in Scotland, but things will start to quieten down from the west as that ridge of high pressure builds in. Lots of clear weather developing, and certainly by the morning on Sunday, a touch of frost forming, particularly across the north of the UK where temperatures will dip below freezing. As for Sunday itself, then we'll get off to a pretty showery start again, once up towards the north and northeast of Scotland. Again, a few of those showers a little bit on the wintry side across the mountains. Quite a keen northwesterly breeze still blowing here too. Further south across southwest Scotland into Northern Ireland and the north of England, mostly fine. Plenty of sunshine, although some high clouds starting to come in across Northern Ireland, turning that sunshine a little bit hazy. Quite hazy the sunshine too across parts of Wales and southwest England. So the best of the sunshine to start the day generally the further east you go. And we hold on to quite a bit of sunshine across many eastern parts of the UK through the day on Sunday. The showers in the far northeast tend to fade away. That brisk wind also easing through the day. But notice out towards the west, clouds starting to come in from the west there. And we'll start to see some patchy rain developing across parts of Northern Ireland and the west of Scotland by the very end of the day on Sunday. A chilly day up and down the country, highs no better than 7 to 9 Celsius in the north, perhaps up to 11 or 12 at best towards the south and southwest. As for Monday, well, a very unsettled day developing across the south of the UK. Cloudy skies, outbreaks of rain, especially during the morning. Rain towards the northwest starting to ease. All in all, things improving into the afternoon. The rain in the south easing, skies starting to brighten elsewhere. Things though turning generally unsettled into the coming week. Rain at times, but notice those temperatures also on the climb up to the high teens in Celsius.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about?
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's time now for the big story, and today Labour celebrate 100 days in power. But after a tumultuous start in office following the freebie scandal, the winter fuel payment cut for the elderly and the relinquishing of British sovereign territory overseas, is it really a cause for celebration? Let's get the views of former senior Labour advisor, a man who has dragged himself away from his in-laws and a kind of autumn barbecue, Matthew Torbett. Matthew, great to see you. Thank you for coming in.
No problem.
And giving up that sausage. What do we make of the first 100 days? Is there any way you can put a positive spin on this?
No, and I would be denying reality if I was to try to. I think if you were going to take some positives from it, I would think making moves towards Great British Railways is a good thing. I think anybody that travels on the railways in this country will, totally see it's a miserable experience. And when you have countries like Ukraine having a higher percentage of trains running on time than we do, you know there's something wrong. I think there's a lot of scepticism, but GB Energy will hopefully turn out to be something good and positive and will save people money. That doesn't seem to be the case right now, but that will be something else. And ultimately, you know, being part of the Labour Party, you're not used to winning elections. We won the general election, right, with a healthy majority. I think a little bit built on sand. I think it's a very broad coalition that may well not last, but ultimately you've got 5 years to try and change something.
Well, I'm a bit worried about GB Energy because this involves the government investing in projects that the private sector have turned their backs on, and the only time the private sector have actually engaged is with massive subsidies. Is that a good use of taxpayers' money, particularly with this technology, which is still a gamble?
The proof will be in the pudding. I'm no expert on this sort of stuff. I still get on very well with people in Ed Miliband's office who are some of the more cleverer people I know in Westminster. So I trust them. I don't know Ed that well.
But it's my viewers' and listeners' money, isn't it? We are betting the house on flaky renewables. Does that not worry you?
No, I think there's what I would always favour is a sort of a base that covers all sorts. We can invest in nuclear. There probably is a place for coal somewhere, you know, admittedly.
Oil and gas where needed.
Yeah, exactly. And I think
we don't want to... But this is not what Ed Miliband is saying or doing.
No, I don't work for Ed Miliband or the Labour Party anymore, so I'm, you know, but these were my views anyway. I am not
So
here
do you
to
think,
be
therefore, I know you're a Labour supporter and you're happy to have a Labour government, but do you think they're going too far with the net zero project? Are you concerned about how far Ed Miliband is going with this, including that stay of execution of 5 years for new petrol and diesel cars, which the EU are going to continue to make?
Well, I think the interesting thing will be, ever since Rachel Reeves at the 2021 party conference made the announcement over was it 15 or 20 billion, and there was really bad comms because they kept talking...
The black hole?
Yeah, well, no, before all this, there was this idea we were going to borrow money to invest. And they ended up scrapping it because they kept mentioning that it was 15 to 20 billion or 30 billion, whatever it was.
Yes, yeah.
And I thought, why are you doing that? You're just letting people know there's a load of money going somewhere where they don't know where it is. Ever since that was announced, it was briefed against almost immediately. Now, I have an idea of who it probably is, and they have quite a big role now in number 10, and now Sue Gray has vacated. So it'll be interesting to me to see whether it actually comes to fruition after all, or whether things do get slightly watered down or not.
Aren't a lot of Labour's policies an example of policies which sound good and come from the right place, but which don't work, such as the non-DOMS tax, private school VAT tax raid, and the workers' rights legislation? All very laudable, but in reality, bad news for those involved.
I think I've always been someone that's believed in evidence-based policy. If you look at the more recent rumours that capital gains tax may be getting a hike, maybe not to the point of income tax, but there or thereabouts, the Treasury's own figures show that you would actually lose maybe £2 billion because of the people leaving all of a sudden.
Correct.
If that's the case, you need to look elsewhere. I think the problem Rachel Reeves probably has and has caused for herself in the fact that she wanted to be so keen to stress that we can be trusted on the economy and my cast iron fiscal rules, she's tied herself in knots a little bit because now she can't raise income tax, which is always a useful way of raising money quickly.
I completely agree. VAT, income tax and national insurance, they ruled all of that out. Why would a chancellor do that for 5 years? I think that was a mistake, because if the country needs the money, it needs the money. Instead, you look at the non-DOMs and, admittedly, the Tories began that policy, which I think was a political move to embarrass Labour and to steal their clothes. But that could cost the country money. The unions are worried about the VAT hike on private schools, with teachers potentially losing their jobs and 10,000 kids already having left the private sector. Where are they going to go? The local state school. So these policies, you know, what about the workers' rights from Angela Rayner? France has superior workers' rights, but higher unemployment. Which is the lesser of two evils?
I think, again, it comes with a balance. That's like most things in life. I think I was proud to lead a campaign with Barry Gardner to try and stop fire and rehire. I think there is a imbalance between employer and employee in many cases that needs rebalancing and dressing out. I think with certain things, though, you do appear to have people that favour things like 0 hours contracts that are students and that may wish to use those to their benefit.
1 million people were on 0 hours last year, many enjoying the benefits. If you want a more secure job, there are 1 million job vacancies currently available?
I think you should probably have some minimum level of working, but you should have the right to maybe ask for those 0 hours. If so, I've worked on 0 hours contracts in hospitality before, and it used to terrify me that my hours could go up or down depending on how well the business was doing.
The problem we've got with this conversation is that I agree with everything you've said, but that's because you're off message. We're not getting the evidence-based policy making from Labour. We're getting ideology, aren't we?
Yes, possibly. I think there's some of it will be politicking, some of it will be they will see it as
red meat for the base.
I don't know, because I actually think back to what the sort of only sort of new thing that seemed to come out of Labour conference was Keir Starmer, I thought, showing a little bit of leg and red meat to reform-type voters in saying, well, we're going to prioritise veterans with regards to homelessness and housing. Same with people that have fled domestic violence. And I think that sort of stuff is going, no, there's a home for you as well. If you want to drift back from reform, we can do that. I think the Labour Party doesn't really know where it stands on stuff anymore. I think it's not the Labour Party of old that most people would see ideologically as socialists or left-wing pragmatists or anything. I think we have a Chancellor who wants to cut her way to growth, which I'm no economist, but I don't see that working. And we have a Prime Minister who isn't really a politician, it isn't in his blood. Therefore, the team around him seem to be letting him down. Because if you were any good at politics, right, this summer, you'd have had a mini budget, because you would have filled the vacuum that has been vacated for stories to be plunged into that you normally get during silly season, but you've not seen how
and
this
all the
could
negative
look.
Headlines which are killing investment in the country.
Yeah, well, no, totally. And I think, I thought it was interesting the way that Lou Hague and the Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner was sort of thrown under the bus a little bit. But
well, indeed, Transport Minister, Transport Secretary criticised P&O, said they're a rogue operator, urged people to boycott them. The only problem is the Prime Minister wants the head of P&O and the parent company to be at this investment conference this coming week. A right royal dust-up. Do you think Keir Starmer is ever going to get the hang of politics?
Well, that will remain to be seen. He wasn't my choice for leader. I never thought he was a good leader. I said this would last 5 years maximum. I don't see it lasting at all. I think
can he make it for 5 years? Given the pressure he's under. Two years.
I've always thought to. So the way I could foresee, and I'm happy to be proven wrong, and I hope he turns this around. No, you can do. I can foresee a situation where if the briefings continue, which may be from within the Labour Party and the government, a lot of this sort of stuff, in my most wildest dreams, that could be the case. If you've got a situation where in 2 years we have the local elections next year, mostly in Tory councils, so it's not a high benchmark for Labour. The year after you have Scotland and Wales, areas where traditionally Labour do well. I think reform will leapfrog the Tories in the polls. They will therefore also leapfrog us at some point. And you might have a Joe Biden situation where someone goes, Keir, if we keep you, we're not going to win. You need to do the selfless thing. You've done so well in getting us back on a government footing, but you need to go now and let somebody younger and more ambitious come in.
Who might that be? Are we looking at a Wes Streeting?
I think Wes is obviously always interested. I think for me, being at party conference, Rachel Reeves was quite clearly on leadership manoeuvres. The glossy
Isn't Rachel Reeves Keir Starmer 2.0 though?
Well, I think that would be my argument. She's tied too close. I think she probably wants it, but you're the woman who can be blamed for the winter fuel allowance being taken away, and you're tied too closely to Keir in the first place.
I'm going to let you get back to that barbecue with the in-laws. Hopefully they've kept you a lamb chop.
We'll see.
Plenty of red meat in that conversation, so thank you, Matthew.
No
See you very soon. What a brilliant conversation. There you go. Former senior Labour advisor Matthew Torbit. Your reaction, gbnews.com/your say. What a shocking line there. Keir Starmer could be gone in 2 years' time. But next up, my Mark Meets guest grew up in a council house and left school with no qualifications. He became one of Britain's most successful entrepreneurs. Graham Leslie, CBE, tells his incredible story next and reveals how you can make your first million. See you in 2.
Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday from 8 p.m.
You must be so proud of your daughter being so just amazingly brave and a model for other people who face illness.
I think we're proud of her all day, every day, and always have been. Liz has always given her all to anything she put her mind to, whether that was studying for her GCSE exams at school or whether it's been her photography and battling cancer. Liz never does anything by half, and we are so incredibly proud of her each and every day.
And Liz, I noticed a wonderful line from you saying that when you've got cancer, A-levels don't matter so much. That seems to me to be a very reasonable view to take, and has given you then the chance to do these other amazing things that you will be doing more of in future with the London Ambulance Service. And I imagine many people will want to help you with your bucket list because they've now seen you and seen how brave you are.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully we've already been overwhelmed by the responses and the support by so many people. I think when my mum originally posted the list, it received like 4,000 replies. It was insane, and still there's more. So from the bottom of our hearts, and especially mine, we just want to say thank you, because there's nothing that forces anyone to get in touch and say, hey, I have something you can do, pop over and do this or that, or it's just out of the generosity of their hearts. So thank you.
GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Coming up in my Take at 10, is Meghan Markle really one of the most bullied people on the planet? But first, Mark Meads. And tonight, the inspirational story of one of the UK's most successful entrepreneurs, Graham Leslie, CBE, a dyslexic who left school with no qualifications, having grown up in a council house. Graham Leslie went on to found one of the UK's biggest pharmaceutical companies and became chairman of his beloved Huddersfield County Football Club, Huddersfield Town, where he built the first all-seater sports stadium in the UK. His incredible story is called Ahead of the Curve, How I Became the Disruptor, the proceeds of which are going to charity. And Graham Leslie, CBE, joins me now. Hi, Graham.
Good evening, Mark. How are you?
Well, I'm very well. Delighted to have you on the show. You came from humble beginnings. So what marked you out as different from your contemporaries growing up?
I think first of all, because I left school quite early, and I left with one of the usual reports that you get where it says Graham could do much better. So I decided to leave and try and do much better, along with lots of people at that time in the late 50s, early 60s. But I just can't conform. I mean, it's, you have to have structure and you have to have conforming structures within society, within businesses and everything. But you've got to have those people that, if they hit a brick wall, they go under it, round it, over it. That is so important in a quality to try and succeed, especially at the time when I was very young, they didn't know what dyslexia was, and you just got punished, because you weren't reading and you weren't understanding. And that's probably why I left school with a report that said Graham could do better.
So clearly your personality and your nature was a big part of your future success. But did any aspect of your upbringing influence your future?
Oh, gosh, yeah. I had a wonderful upbringing. I had a beautiful, stable parents, family life, brother and sister. The structure was very much based on a religion. and having a faith and a belief, but also a lot of love and respect and working within the community, because my father was principal probation officer in Middlesbrough, and my mother was secretary to Sir Harvey Jones, who was then chairman of ICI. But everything was based around being, offering help and assistance to those that were less fortunate, shall we say.
Well, your amazing story is featured in the book. Can you tell us when you had your first success as an entrepreneur? What was the moment where you thought, I'm quite good at this, actually, I might make some money?
It's funny you should mention that. It was probably going back to just before I left school. There was a certain book that was written by D.H. Lawrence called Lady Chatterley's Lover.
Yeah.
And it was banned. And so I discovered, along with a friend of mine, David, that there was 10 or 12 copies available at the dockyards in Middlesbrough. And I thought, what a wonderful opportunity. It's something that's banned, difficult to get hold of. There's an opportunity here. So we went to the docks, we bought the books, and we sat on the bus coming home, and Dave said, oh, I'm a little bit nervous. Let's get rid of these quick. Let's sell it to one of the schools on the way back to our school, which was Wynniebank Secondary Modern. And I came up with the idea. I don't know where it came from, but I said, no, let's rent the book out. And if there's any problems, you can sort them out, Dave, because you're 6'3". And, if there's a cash flow problem, and so that's what we did. And that carried on for about 4 or 5 weeks. But we obviously sold it to the other schools in the area, not our school. But the headmasters obviously talked, and it all drifted back to 2 lads from this school. So we were actually caned and punished in front of 400 kids. So that was an early learning curve. Yeah, very much so.
Most
but
definitely.
I think
the entrepreneurial spark was there. I mean, you've had so much success since then, of course. A massive pharmaceutical company, you're involved in the creative arts, so much charity work as well. Briefly, if you can, the Huddersfield Town Stadium was completely original and groundbreaking, and an example of how you are a disruptor, you think outside the box. How did that come about? Because I think it was the first all-seater stadium in the UK, wasn't it?
It was the first all-seater for rugby and soccer. There'd been an all-seater one before at Coventry just for soccer, but we combined both of the important sports within the town. So I think the deciding moment was when I joined the board in '89 and they made me commercial director. The first board meeting they came up with was incredible because they turned round and they said one end of the football stadium then was affectionately termed the cowshed. And so I was sat in the first board meeting and they couldn't raise £10,000 to repair the roof. So they had to close that end. And I sat there and I thought, good God, what have I got myself involved in here?
Well, I tell you what, you turned it around. Ian, I've only got a couple of seconds left, but I've got to ask you finally, we're going to plug the book. For anyone sat there at home hoping to make their first million, what would your advice be?
Believe in yourself, believe in your faith, and set off. The biggest step is the first one. Just do it.
Graham, you have got the T-shirt. Let me tell you that Graham Leslie's incredible story is called Ahead of the Curve, How I Became the Disruptor, and it's out now. Graham, let's have a longer chat next time. A privilege to have you on the show. Brilliant conversation. OK, folks, lots more to come in the 10 o'clock hour. Meghan Markle says she's one of the most bullied people in the world, but with serious bullying allegations against her, is she the queen of double standards? I'll be giving my unapologetic verdict on the woman known as Duchess Difficult. It's a Meghan Markle Take at 10 special. Don't go anywhere.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. We've got plenty of fine weather in store across the UK over the next day or so, but as we head into the new working week, things will turn more unsettled. We'll see some rain developing at times, but all the while, those temperatures starting to climb as well. At the moment, low pressure is moving off the scene out into the North Sea. That's allowing a ridge of high pressure to build in from the west, so things starting to quieten down, but a bit of a chilly northerly breeze developing as well. And certainly as we go into the overnight period, we'll hold on to quite a few showers in that northerly airstream across the north and northeast of the UK. Some wintry showers across the high ground in Scotland, but things will start to quieten down from the west as that ridge of high pressure builds in. Lots of clear weather developing, and certainly by the morning on Sunday, a touch of frost forming, particularly across the north of the UK where temperatures will dip below freezing. As for Sunday itself, then we'll get off to a pretty showery start again, once up towards the north and northeast of Scotland. Again, a few of those showers a little bit on the wintry side across the mountains. Quite a keen northwesterly breeze still blowing here too. Further south across southwest Scotland into Northern Ireland and the north of England, mostly fine. Plenty of sunshine, although some high clouds starting to come in across Northern Ireland, turning that sunshine a little bit hazy. Quite hazy the sunshine too across parts of Wales and southwest England. So the best of the sunshine to start the day generally the further east you go. And we hold on to quite a bit of sunshine across many eastern parts of the UK through the day on Sunday. The showers in the far northeast tend to fade away. That brisk wind also easing through the day. But notice out towards the west, clouds starting to come in from the west there. And we'll start to see some patchy rain developing across parts of Northern Ireland and the west of Scotland by the very end of the day on Sunday. A chilly day up and down the country, highs no better than 7 to 9 Celsius in the north, perhaps up to 11 or 12 at best towards the south and southwest. As for Monday, well, a very unsettled day developing across the south of the UK. Cloudy skies, outbreaks of rain, especially during the morning. Rain towards the northwest starting to ease. All in all, things improving into the afternoon. The rain in the south easing, skies starting to brighten elsewhere. Things though turning generally unsettled into the coming week. Rain at times, but notice those temperatures also on the climb up to the high teens in Celsius.
We can expect clear skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead. Lovely. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
We love making our audience good luck.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria DiPiero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Good evening. It is 10 o'clock on television, on radio and online in the United Kingdom and across the world. This is Mark Dolan Tonight. In My Take at 10, Meghan Markle says she's one of the most bullied people in the world. That's right. She says that she's one of the most bullied people in the world. But with serious bullying allegations against her, is she the queen of double standards? I'll be giving my unapologetic verdict on the woman known as Duchess Difficult in just 2 minutes' time. An extraordinary row has broken out in the United States, with news channel CBS heavily editing an interview with presidential hopeful Kamala Harris to make her answers more impressive. Donald Trump is calling for the channel to be shut down in a political scandal which is rocking America. So, will it influence the outcome in November? I'll be asking my top US insider. And tonight's top pundits, a brand new star on Mark Dolan tonight, political commentator Fleur Elizabeth, fearless journalist Nina Mishkov, and former Fleet Street kingpin Neil Wallace. Meghan Markle says that she is one of the most bullied people in the world. Well, I'll be giving my verdict in a very special Take at 10, straight after the headlines, with someone that is above reproach, and frankly, always will be. Katie Bowen.
Mark, thank you very much indeed. And a good evening to you. It's just gone 10 o'clock. These are your latest headlines from the GB newsroom. As you've been hearing tonight, the former First Minister of Scotland, Alex Salmond, regarded by many as a titan of Scottish politics, has died at the age of 69. He was reportedly giving a speech in North Macedonia this morning, and it's understood he died at some point after the event. Salmond was First Minister between 2007 and 2014, leading the SNP to historic victories, including a majority in the 2011 Scottish Parliament election. He was also instrumental in the 2014 independence referendum, a campaign that ultimately ended in defeat. Following his resignation as both First Minister and SNP leader, Salmond later went on to lead the Alba Party. Tributes are being paid across the political spectrum this evening to Alex Salmond, and a short while ago, Buckingham Palace issued a statement from the King where he has said that he and the Queen are greatly saddened to hear of the sudden death of Alex Salmond, adding his devotion to Scotland drove his decades of public service. The Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, has said tonight that Alex Salmond was a monumental figure of Scottish and UK politics. He leaves behind a lasting legacy. The former First Minister of Scotland, Nicola Sturgeon, said a short time ago that she was shocked and sorry to learn of Salmond's death, adding, "I cannot pretend that the events of the past few years which led to the breakdown of our relationship did not happen. However, it remains the fact that for many years, Alex was an incredibly significant figure in my life, and we formed one of the most successful partnerships in UK politics." Alba Party Deputy Leader Kenny McCaskill has also said that the party grieves the loss of their founder and leader, describing Salmond as the outstanding Scottish politician, not just of his generation, but for generations far before. And Scotland's First Minister and the leader of the SNP, John Swinney, has said tonight that Salmond worked tirelessly and fought fearlessly for the country that he loved and for her independence. In other news tonight, 100 days in, and Sir Keir Starmer admits it has not been smooth sailing. In a video posted on social media, the Prime Minister has been reflecting on Labour's landslide win in July, but acknowledged the choppy days since taking office. When asked if he thought his start had been successful, his spokesman said it's up to the public to decide.
Today marks 100 days of my Labour government. Before that, 14 years of Tory failure. 14 years is a long time to cause damage. 100 days isn't much time to fix it. I will level with you. The scale of the damage is huge, but I will take the tough decisions to fix the foundations of our country, to deliver the long-term change we need, the change that you voted for. The next 100 days starts now, and I won't waste a moment.
Prime Minister there. And finally for now, GB News can reveal that an average of 135 migrants have crossed the English Channel in small boats each day since Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer took office. Over 13,500 have arrived since the 5th of July. Today alone, more than 400 migrants made the perilous journey from France, pushing the total for the year to nearly 27,200. A Home Office spokesman insists they're committed to dismantling people smuggling operations, saying that the government will stop at nothing to bring these criminals to justice. Those are your latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Katie Bowen. More from me in an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Before we start tonight's show, can I just share a couple of thoughts with you and a couple of words about the late, great Alex Salmond, former Scottish First Minister, former leader of the SNP. Now, he and I differed politically, but I'll never forget, in one of my early TV appearances, I was presenting a show called The Last Word on More 4 when that channel launched about 20 years ago. And there were lots of politicians on the show. They were very self-absorbed and serious, and they came and they went. When Alex Salmond joined me in the studio, he chuckled at all of my jokes, gave great answers, and afterwards invited me to join him for tea at the House of Commons. Now, I didn't accept because I don't take freebies, but it just was the measure of the man, a real gentleman and a titan of a politician. So just in loving memory of Alex Salmond and thoughts with his wife Moira and his family and friends at this very sad time. OK, folks, it's time for my take at 10. Do you remember when the word victim had some actual meaning? Flood victim, victim of a burglary. Occasionally, I'm a fashion victim. Hopefully, I've got away with it tonight. But now victimhood is worn like a badge of honour. It is something that people strive for. Enter stage left, the queen of self-pity, Meghan Markle, who this week announced to a group of very young children that she is, and I quote, one of the most bullied people in the world. This is the same woman who was subjected to a lengthy Buckingham Palace investigation into bullying allegations against her, the results of which were kept private. Although if she were exonerated, would her PR team not be shouting that from the rooftops? Of course, we will never know whether Markle bullied staff at the palace. But what we do know is the vast number of employees that she's got through on her watch, the number of people that have worked for her and then left. Meghan Markle gets through more staff members than James Corden gets through Mars bars, with The Hollywood Reporter magazine claiming that Meghan is like, and I quote, a dictator in high heels who reduces grown men to tears. Meanwhile, the Daily Beast website report a former courtier as saying, there definitely were bad, very bad, even psycho moments. Eyewitness people being chewed up in person and over the phone and made to feel like SHIT. However, 5 current and former employees shot back and told US Weekly she's the best boss ever. She gives staff bundles of freshly cut flowers, home-produced eggs, and makes her team feel like seeds being watered. Blimey, I'd rather be shouted at, frankly, than treated like a potted plant. But the former employee who spoke to the Daily Beast dismissed the US Weekly article as a cynical exercise, saying, look, she's lovely when it's all going her way, but a demon when the worm turns. She barks out orders and sends angry emails at 5 a.m. Now, this is all hearsay, their word against hers. Markle would strenuously deny the allegations. But we do know that an astonishing 18 members of staff have quit working for her since 2018. Now, I'll grant you that Meghan Markle has had some pretty negative press, and I'm very concerned about her claims this week that much of the vitriol happened while she was expecting her 2 children. That is awful. But this is a woman who chose a very public role, firstly as a Hollywood actress, and then as the daughter-in-law of the future King of England. Hardly choices made by a shrinking violet or someone who wants to stay out of the papers. And are these claims of bullying a way to censor critics like yours truly? Are princes and millionaire actresses the latest protected class? Are we not to call out Meghan Markle for her abject lies in the Oprah Winfrey TV interview, when, for example, she claimed to have been married the day before the wedding, something dismissed as nonsense by the Archbishop of Canterbury? Or what about the unfounded slur of racism against an unnamed member of the royal family? Or what about the mocking of our late, great Queen Elizabeth in that awful Netflix interview with the fake curtsy? Look how mortified Harry is there, ashamed to be sat next to a woman mocking a truly Great Britain. And Markle this week plays the victim in front of an audience of little girls at an event which was supposed to be about them and their future, but which, true to form, she made about herself. This is the same Meghan Markle who told a reporter a few years ago, "No one ever asks how I'm feeling." Well, let me tell you about you, Meghan. You are one of the most famous people in the world. You're married to a prince. You are a multimillionaire. You have 2 beautiful children, an idyllic life in Hollywood, California, and a sprawling mansion in Montecito, which we're told boasts 16 bathrooms. Perhaps Meghan would argue that one of the reasons that she's been bullied is because of her royal connections. Maybe that is the albatross around her neck. She may be right, but it's a mystery, therefore, why she would hang on to her royal titles if the royal connection is so negative to her. Although I can think of a few million reasons why she's hung on to them. But after all these revelations, one title Meghan Markle will never shake off is Duchess Difficult, a title that she's definitely earned. Your reaction to the suggestion that Meghan Markle is one of the most bullied people in the world. Do you have sympathy for the Duchess of Sussex? Let me know your thoughts. gbnews.com/your say. But first, tonight's top pundits. I'm delighted to have political commentator Fleur Elizabeth. We have Fleet Street legend, broadcaster and writer Nina Mishkov, and former national newspaper editor, no less, the one and only Neil Wallace. Neil, Duchess Difficult. Does Meghan Markle deserve that title?
Every syllable of it. She's an appalling woman. The idea that you could sit there and say publicly, I am the most bullied person in the world, or one of the most bullied people in the world.
To a bunch of 11-year-olds.
To a bunch of 11-year-olds, but she knew the cameras was there. I wonder what the victims of domestic violence felt about that when they were watching that. I wonder what the
bullying. I think domestic violence.
Nina, please don't bully Neil.
Yeah, yes.
Neil is the second most bullied person in the world behind Meghan Markle.
Yes, this is.
Look at you. You brought a tear to his eye.
Yeah.
He's a fragile flower, even though he's worked for Rupert Murdoch.
Yes. I do wonder how. Actually, that's probably what she's counting on, really, that everybody else can be dismissed. She's a special case. The truth is, if someone says something appalling that really strikes at how you experience your life, such as a victim of domestic violence, to hear her sat there in her makeup and her £1,000 gowns and to say, I'm bullied, let me tell you, Nina, that strikes right to your core, and that goes across everywhere as well. No, that's convenient for you to say for, and I'm sure she would agree. Okay. I'm sure that Meghan Markle would agree with every word you say, and you know what? That's your problem,
Nina.
Not my problem. Not my problem at all. The point being that Meghan Markle was bullied out of this country by the royal family and the British media. What happened was, very simply, that when she arrived on the scene, she and Harry, who had always been the most popular royal next to the Queen, became doubly, magical somehow to the British public, and the wedding and all of that. Now, the problem with that scenario is that we have William and Kate, and William and Kate are the number one. They are the ones who will take the monarchy forward, the machinery forward.
Because they haven't done any podcasts, they haven't written books, they've not done documentaries, throwing their family and the country under the bus.
No, the point being that their popularity overtook that of William and Kate. Now, that cannot be allowed to happen because William is
the one who will keep the machinery going. It has to be that line of succession.
And how do you explain for the turnover of staff? 18 employees working for the Duchess of Sussex since 2018.
Well, that's how many? That's 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
So you're losing how many a year? You're losing 3 a year. That's not a great deal.
But these are key figures. I mean, this is not a multinational company.
Not necessarily.
This is this is a couple, a royal couple,
but the problem,
with a few staff members.
You have to agree. They were pushed out. She and Harry were pushed out.
Okay, Neil.
The
Neil.
problem we have with Nina's argument, she's forgetting where she used to work. One of the great fallacies that the palace would love you to believe, that Harry and Meghan would have you believe, is that somehow the establishment, the palace, dictated to the British media how you covered these people.
Okay.
This is nonsense, and you know it. The point of the matter is...
Because I have been in Fleet Street, I know it.
Well,
I know it
yes,
very
but
well.
never at a senior level. And let me tell you, I have never been told of how I should react in dealing with the...
Dealing with finish your point. You've never been told
how I should react to the royals. I should follow what I believe is right for the reader. And you know what? The readers loved Harry.
Okay, now listen, Neil, objection sustained. I'm going to overrule your suggestion that somehow Nina is a minnow in the world of journalism. Yes, you've been a national newspaper editor, but of course, Nina, one of the best-known journalists in the country. So you're both big names from Fleet Street, but you don't agree. Fleur, where do you stand on this?
Now they've stopped bullying each other. I do think that you were right. Meghan has chosen this life of fame. And also, you said that the definition of victim has changed. The definition of bullying the same. There is criticism and there is bullying. And if you want no criticism, you've got to be a very good person, which I think, personally, I think the Princess of Wales has done a very good example of. But a person who mailed her wedding ring back to her first husband, abandoned her father who paid for her education and excluded
that father, him from for heaven's sake.
The wedding.
He's never met his grandchildren.
But he sold her out. He sold her out.
Well, she completely abandoned him after he gave her whole lifestyle and education.
But he sold his own daughter out for money from the British press.
Well, he made a big mistake, didn't he? But he made a big mistake by posing for a photo at an internet cafe because he was out of his depth. Final thoughts on this before we crack on?
Well, she's chosen to be a public figure. She's chosen to marry into the most famous family in the world, and if she can't accept the criticism that comes with that, then...
It's beyond criticism.
OK, well, folks, I think we're going to have to come back to this because feelings are running very high. My pundits are coming in hot tonight, so we'll return to this at 10:30. Plus, remembering the late, great Alex Salmond. Neil's got some sober words for Alex, which may not be that celebratory, so we'll debate Alex Salmond's legacy shortly. But time now for the Great British Giveaway and your chance to win the equivalent of having an extra £3,000 in your bank account every month for the next year. That's a whopping 36 grand in tax-free cash. Here is how you do it.
This is Good Luck.
Good luck indeed. Donald Trump is probably angrier today than he's ever been. Find out why next.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Online dating apps are still the go-to for millions of British adults, with 1 in 10 using them to look for a romantic connection.
Yes, are you one of them? Let us know. But with many apps introducing subscription fees and complex algorithms, the world of online dating has never been harder to navigate. So who better to join us to discuss this than Mr. Tinder himself, Stéphane Pierre Tomlin. You have been dubbed Britain's best-looking eligible bachelor.
Yeah, so this happened back in 2016. Got an email from Tinder, and it was like, "You're the most swiped man on Tinder."
So just explain to us, for viewers who don't know, what is swiping? What does that mean on Tinder?
Yeah, so on Tinder, the app, if you swipe left, that means you don't like the person in front of you, and if you swipe to the right, that means you like that person.
So do you mind still being associated with that? It's a good thing.
Well, I mean, yeah, it made me who I am now, and I love sharing how I was successful, and now I'm like a dating expert.
What's your situation now? Are you with anyone? Are you still single?
So I'm seeing someone at the minute. Things are going well, and I'm a dating expert, so I'm always giving advice to people
Did she know your title of most swiped?
Of course, who doesn't?
Yeah,
It's quite hard. It's quite hard being the most swiped man on Tinder because you get a label on you. So I find it harder than anyone else, to be honest.
And where did you meet her? That's the big question.
At an event.
So not on Tinder?
Not on Tinder, ironically.
So for All About Troubled Online, it's actually a real life rendezvous. Which,
I mean, I have met people on Tinder in the past, and it has worked. Well, it didn't work, but yeah.
I need to know how to do the famous Stefan Smolder.
That camera is not a camera. That is your best friend, that's your lover. So you really smiles from the camera, so it goes like this.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Conservative MPs have finally chosen their top 2 for the leadership. And now, it's over to the members. Join me, Christopher Hope, on Thursday as Kevin Badenoch and Robert Jenrick are quizzed by Conservative Party members and myself at our GB News leadership event.
And afterwards, join me, Patrick Christie's, with a live studio audience and a star panel as we discuss what it means for the Conservative Party and what it means for you. Decision Time, the race to lead, from 7 p.m. this Thursday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'll get to your emails at 10:30, but first it's time for US news in the company of the Queen of US showbiz royal and political reporting, Kinsey Schofield. And Kinsey, an almighty row in the media about a Kamala Harris interview on CBS News, a programme called 60 Minutes. And what I'm going to do is play a clip. And what we've got is we've got Kamala Harris answering a question, I think, about Israel. It's very long-winded. It's a word salad. It's incoherent. And then we have the edited version in which the channel, CBS News, have taken a different answer from later in the interview and just plonked it where she gave a bad answer. So they've literally edited the interview to make her sound better. You're going to get the original and then you'll get the edited version that the public saw. Take a look.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
Well, Bill, the work that we have done has resulted in a number of movements in that region by Israel that were very much prompted by or a result of many things, including our advocacy for what needs to happen in the region.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
We're not going to stop pursuing what is necessary for the United States to be clear about where we stand on the need for this war to end.
I mean, Kinsey, I'm lost for words. This is corruption, isn't it? This is lying.
I mean, it's a very unethical when it comes to journalism. And you're absolutely right. You've teased that former President Trump is angry over this interview, but even the Harris-Walz campaign have criticized 60 Minutes' sloppy editing job. Many believe, including the former president, that the network should not only release the entire interview raw, but they need to release a transcript that has not been edited, because 60 Minutes, they do not deny that they reshaped, quote unquote, reshaped the full interview to conceal Kamala's word salad, but they also initially released an edited version of the transcript. So it's beyond somebody making a decision in an editing bay and saying, oh, well, this is going to look better, or we're going to cut this for time. It's an edited transcript as well. I mean, I don't think I'm alone when I say the American public deserve to see an accurate reflection of the person that wants to represent us and make decisions that directly affect us.
Does this demonstrate how corrupt and how partisan so much of US media now is?
Yeah, I mean, just to give you another example, Morning Joe, the host of Morning Joe on MSNBC recently interviewed Kamala's husband, who has been accused of slapping an ex in public so hard that she she jerked around. Her body was jerked around. You know, he was also accused, he's accused of cheating with the nanny and getting her pregnant. And when MSNBC interviewed him, they said, does it make you angry? That's not the word they used. They they were more vulgar in their language. But they said, does it make you angry that people are bringing up these things about your personal life instead of you tout yourself as a feminist? Why were you banging the nanny and getting her pregnant? I mean, I feel like that's the more appropriate question.
Well, indeed. Of course, that was Morning Joe's Joe Scarborough, who definitely looks to be a Democrat Party shill. Meanwhile, Kamala gets the Vogue treatment.
Yes, yeah. Fans of the former First Lady Melania Trump are not impressed with VP Harris's second Vogue cover. I mean, again, Vogue's bias is blatant here. They've had Hillary Clinton, Jill Biden, and Michelle Obama on the cover and have ignored Melania, who is a beautiful woman, former model, fashion icon, and she was the former First Lady that a significant amount of Americans show support towards. And to top it off, Mark, Kamala spent the first anniversary of Hamas's mass civilian slaughter, October the 7th, posing for that vapid photo shoot, which I think some will consider vile.
Most definitely. Now, Princess Catherine makes a surprise first public visit since ending chemo. So good to see her.
Oh, it was so good to see her. Now, so royal sources say that the Princess of Wales decided to join Prince William to show her support, empathy, and compassion to the community. She met with some of the victims and some of the first responders of the Southport stabbings. And this was going to be an emotional experience for Prince William and Catherine because they have tiny Taylor Swift fans at home. We saw, you know, you and I sat there the night after the Taylor Swift concert, kind of revisiting the excitement to see Prince George, to see Princess Charlotte that night at the Taylor Swift concert. You can't help but imagine yourself in those parents' shoes. I'm not surprised that this is an engagement that Catherine wanted to be there for.
And Prince George, you mentioned him. He's revealed his career ambitions this week. What's the plan?
Isn't this so cute? During a recent visit to a local cafe, 11-year-old Prince George was shown a wood-fired pizza oven, and the owner of the cafe claims that the heir excitedly exclaimed, "That's what I want to do when I grow up." So you could just see Prince George at a Domino's Pizza near you. I think this tells us that he is a very sweet, down-to-earth little boy, and we would expect nothing less.
Kinsey, brilliant stuff. I wish we had longer. My thanks to the Queen of US showbiz, royal and political reporting with some very hot stories tonight, the one and only Kinsey Schofield. Do check out her excellent podcast and website of the same name, To Die For Daily. Kinsey, see you next Saturday. OK, folks, lots more to come. Next up, tomorrow's papers and some big front pages.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. We've got plenty of fine weather in store across the UK over the next day or so, but as we head into the new working week, things will turn more unsettled. We'll see some rain developing at times, but all the while, those temperatures starting to climb as well. At the moment, low pressure is moving off the scene out into the North Sea. That's allowing a ridge of high pressure to build in from the west, so things starting to quieten down, but a bit of a chilly northerly breeze developing as well. And certainly as we go into the overnight period, we'll hold on to quite a few showers in that northerly airstream across the north and northeast of the UK. Some wintry showers across the high ground in Scotland, but things will start to quieten down from the west as that ridge of high pressure builds in. Lots of clear weather developing, and certainly by the morning on Sunday, a touch of frost forming, particularly across the north of the UK where temperatures will dip below freezing. As for Sunday itself, then we'll get off to a pretty showery start again, once up towards the north and northeast of Scotland. Again, a few of those showers a little bit on the wintry side across the mountains. Quite a keen northwesterly breeze still blowing here too. Further south across southwest Scotland into Northern Ireland and the north of England, mostly fine. Plenty of sunshine, although some high clouds starting to come in across Northern Ireland, turning that sunshine a little bit hazy. Quite hazy the sunshine too across parts of Wales and southwest England. So the best of the sunshine to start the day generally the further east you go. And we hold on to quite a bit of sunshine across many eastern parts of the UK through the day on Sunday. The showers in the far northeast tend to fade away. That brisk wind also easing through the day. But notice out towards the west, clouds starting to come in from the west there. And we'll start to see some patchy rain developing across parts of Northern Ireland and the west of Scotland by the very end of the day on Sunday. A chilly day up and down the country, highs no better than 7 to 9 Celsius in the north, perhaps up to 11 or 12 at best towards the south and southwest. As for Monday, well, a very unsettled day developing across the south of the UK. Cloudy skies, outbreaks of rain, especially during the morning. Rain towards the northwest starting to ease. All in all, things improving into the afternoon. The rain in the south easing, skies starting to brighten elsewhere. Things though turning generally unsettled into the coming week. Rain at times, but notice those temperatures also on the climb up to the high teens in Celsius.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home? Talking about? Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy. Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. OK, folks, it's that time, just gone 10:30, and tomorrow's papers. And the Sunday Telegraph, a very sad news and a lovely portrait there. Alex Salmond dies aged 69. PM scapegoats minister to save £1 billion deal. And Ed Miliband wastes cash on net zero pylon blight. The Observer now. Starmer steps into cabinet row to rescue global summit. Monumental figure Salmond dies at 69 is in the Observer. Sunday Express now. Rapists and thugs to get bail. Hundreds of suspected rapists, violent thugs and drug traffickers could be freed on bail ahead of trial because of a cutback on part-time judges. And Vanessa Feltz, good friend of mine, front page of the Express. Mum put me on a diet when I was just 9. Sunday Mirror now. PM on first 100 days in office. Keir Starmer, judge me on how we fix Britain. Starmer says his government is just getting started. Sun on Sunday. I'm a celeb. Well, actually, we're not going to give this one away. We're going to save that for a couple of minutes' time because it's a big surprise. Mail on Sunday. Boost your health forever with Michael Mosley's daily Just One Thing lifestyle tweets. Brilliant health guru. Of course, we miss him very much. And Labour sleaze latest row engulfing Home Secretary over taxpayer-funded motorcade for pop superstar deepens as it's revealed Law Chief pressurised Met to give Taylor her VIP escort. Daily Star Sunday, the last one. Have we got that, folks? OK, we'll come to that in just a moment. But, folks, let's get reaction to all of the big stories of the day with our lovely pundits. I'm delighted to have Fleur Elizabeth, Nina Mishkoff and Neil Wallace. Nina, 100 days of Labour. What a disaster.
They've really screwed it up, haven't they? You know, it's been quite extraordinary to watch. I think part of the problem is that Rishi Sunak called the election far earlier than anybody thought, and I don't think they were ready for it.
That's an interesting theory.
I don't think they were ready. They were ready to win an election. They weren't ready to take power. It's very different being in power. And, you know, 14 years, you know, how you deal with Whitehall, you don't learn that in 2 seconds.
Fleur Elizabeth, will the next 100 days be worse?
Well, it says they're just getting started, and I do not want to see what happens next. It's every day you're just like, what is going on? It's like we're living in a nightmare. I'm just hoping that we get the best leader of the opposition coming from the Conservative leadership contest who can give a bit more rebuttal than Rishi's giving at the moment.
And who is that best leader, by the way? Is it Badenoch or is it Jenrick?
It's Bobby J.
Is that right?
That's
right. What's Bobby J got over Kemi?
He is... Immigration is the biggest issue in the country, and he is the only one that is committed to leaving the ECHR, meaning that we can deport foreign criminals, we can secure our borders. Yeah,
but with respect, Fleur, if we leave the ECHR, then you compromise the Good Friday Agreement. And you're far too young to remember the troubles in Ireland. But part of that Good Friday deal depends on our both being in the ECHR. And note that that's been rarely discussed.
There has to be a legal workaround. Do you object to the idea, as suggested by Robert Jenrick today, Nina, of 1 million foreign migrants who are criminals being deported from this country?
Are there 1 million criminals in this country?
That's a big figure.
If they're illegally entering.
People here in the country illegally.
Illegal.
So that makes them criminals, doesn't it?
But how do we come by this figure of 1 million illegal migrants in this country? We've got a backlog of 80 odd thousand. We haven't got a backlog of 1 million.
OK, well, what do you think about this, Neil? It's a bold headline from
Trump headline.
Robert Jenrick that he will deport 1 million people when he becomes Prime Minister.
I think the figures are very difficult. I think, though, however, I don't think that's right, Nina. There's only 80.
Well, it's 120,000.
But the point being, something has to be done.
But it's not 1 million people. That's a Trump headline.
Right.
It's nonsense.
Fine.
Well, if we accept every asylum application, then...
What would you say...
That's 120,000. It's not 1 million.
What would you say to our viewers and listeners who would welcome the idea of kicking 1 million illegal migrants out of Britain when he becomes Prime Minister? Why isn't that a good thing? If they're not supposed to be here, they're using British resources...
Show me the 1 million people that are not supposed to be here.
Well, what if it's half a million? What if it's a quarter of a million?
A quarter of... And how is he going to do that?
By leaving the ECHR.
By leaving the ECHR and showing the political will to really do something about it. By the way, now, with this line, it's a headline in The Express, Robert Jenrick vows to kick 1 million illegal migrants out of the country in hardline Tory leadership pledge. Is Robert Jenrick out-faraging Nigel Farage, Neil?
Well, he's probably having a good go, and I'm not a great fan, to be honest, of Jenrick. I'm not sure. I mean, I wanted Cleverly to get it, but because I am worried about the similarity between the two contestants. They're both right of centre. I'm right wing, and I actually have a vote in this. But I think it's yes. I take your point entirely about it being the Tory party, but the Tory party, like most parties, has to be an amalgam of things, and you have to take part of it.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah.
Tories have
But it's been an amalgam for 14 years, and the public rejected it. The cosy liberal consensus to which the Tories have signed up. These days, the Conservatives are glorified Liberal Democrats without the sandals or the Toyota Prius.
So that is the Liberal Democrats. I will not have that said about the Liberal Democrats.
Yeah. So
that's bullying.
So the point being, I guess, is everything you say is right, including what you just said about the Liberal Democrats being sort of sat there just cruising on everybody else's coattails with not a policy between them. They are completely useless.
Don't you want a robust? Don't you want a robust Conservative leading the party?
Yes, I do. I want Margaret Thatcher back. Unfortunately, I can't have her.
Well, isn't Robert Jenrick second best?
His conversion to the right seems to me to have been... he in many ways ticks my boxes, but his quite recent conversion to the right comes as a bit of a surprise to me. I don't think he's had a great history to it.
The Conservatives have only one from the centre ground. They're mad to have two candidates from the right. They cannot go up against the right.
How did Boris Johnson win from the centre?
Boris Johnson...
No, he won on breakfast.
No, he won
because of Brexit.
Because he's Boris.
He won because of Brexit.
Fleur, is the ticket too right-wing, Badenoch versus Jenrick? Is there a lack of choice there for voters?
No, these are... Where we have gone... Where the Conservatives have gone wrong as a party is being a broad church. They had this great majority in 2019 because people lent their votes from Labour to do Brexit, and they have now lost those votes back to Labour and to Reform.
And to the
These are two groups that care about...
They're not the
These are two groups that care about immigration.
Can the Tories unite around the ultimate winner, given that both candidates are on the right?
Yes.
And given that the Tory backbenchers are as wet as they come?
Well, 100%. When Jenrick said that he would make sure all future candidates would also agree with leaving the ECHR, and that anyone in the Cabinet, I think, is right.
That's what he said, yeah. It's about the Cabinet.
That is uniting them. It's saying, if you are not with me, you're out.
You'll never win get anywhere near the next election with those two candidates.
Well, that's an interesting suggestion. Firm whack of leadership there from Robert Jenrick, which we saw for many, many years in Alex Salmond. who was the leader of the Labour Party when he sadly, tragically passed away at the age of 69 today after a speaking engagement in North Macedonia. You knew Alex Salmond and you worked with him, didn't you, Nina?
I didn't know him. I met him last year. I was doing Question Time. I was on the panel in Question Time. It was
Brilliant.
from Fort William in Scotland, and Alex was also on the panel. So I met him before and watched him working the audience, and then afterwards had a drink afterwards with him and his team. And whether you agree with his politics or not, what a charismatic man, what an ultimate politician, what a skilled commentator he was. And Keir Starmer could do with a bit of his, with a bit of his kind of
rather a lot of it, actually.
Neil, you're gonna sort of end this loving, aren't you? Obviously, we all mourn the passing of a man, the family are devastated, but politically, you were not so keen.
I think it's an utter tragedy that somebody would die at 69. I think that's an astonishingly young age. I think he's been a huge figure in British politics, without doubt. He's also been a massively destructive figure in British politics. This is the man who drove through the Scottish referendum that could have led to the breakup of the United Kingdom. I think that was an appalling thing. I think it was an appalling prospect. I'm so grateful that he failed, and I thought he was right to resign when he did. There's no question of his achievements. He took the SNP from nothing. Literally, I think they had 2 MPs at one point, didn't they?
Yeah.
And took them to power. But he was obsessed by destroying the United Kingdom. And to me, that was an appalling idea, and I'm utterly glad that his career ended in failure.
You're not Scottish. That's up for the Scottish people.
OK, I mean, Fleur, it's interesting, when you think about the really consequential politicians of the last 5 or 6 decades, they're all big personalities, aren't they? Nigel Farage, who I know hadn't been in Parliament until July of this year, but of course was behind Brexit, Margaret Thatcher, Tony Blair, Boris Johnson, and I think Alex Salmond belongs in that list, doesn't he?
Yeah, well, he was described in the Telegraph today as the Nigel Farage of Scotland, though I don't know how much he would like that. But, it's whether you agree with what he wanted for Scotland, he was passionate about it and he loved his country and he wanted what he believed was best for his country, which I think, wherever you stand on Farage, is the same thing. He truly believed that we were better outside of the EU and he campaigned for that. And there's many things I admire about Alex Salmond, including his attack on gender ideology, which I think many people often forget.
It's very true. Alaba was quite anti-woke. Well, folks, we've got a big part coming up. It's got more front pages and breaking news in the world of entertainment. A massive star has signed up for I'm a Celebrity on ITV, and they're going to be paid more than Nigel Farage. Who could it be? I shall reveal all next.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
True crime is everywhere.
Yep, next weekend, CrimeCon UK takes place in London. And joining us now to tell us more about that event and the true crime phenomena is former detective Stephen. How do you pronounce your surname? Keogh. Sorry, Stephen.
That's all right.
I should have texted you before.
No worries.
And Nancy, and again, Nancy, what's your surname?
Bourne.
Thank you. I'm showing my ignorance there, but thank you both for joining us. So, Stephen, you're a former top cop. Hope you don't mind me describing you as that. At CrimeCon and other events like that, do you get into sort of the semantics of the investigations and, how... For example, how I was watching something the other night where somebody was unfortunately murdered, but you saw the crime scene investigators trying to work out from which side the person was attacked from. Did the knife come from the left-hand side or the right-hand side? Is it all that kind of stuff?
So for me, everything I've done since I've left the police is about sharing that knowledge of investigations, because if you watch TV, they get it wrong a lot. So what we try and do, I'm not the only police officer there, there's experts, so forensic scientists, psychologists, all from that investigative world, just trying to get across, well, actually, this is how it's really done. This is what we do, not what you're going to see on telly. And I think that's really important. So for me personally, coming along to CrimeCon, I just look at the list of people that are there, honestly, and I'm proud to be associated with them. There are some fascinating people there. People who've really fought for justice for their children. People who are campaigning for victims, for survivors. So it's an event that when you look at the name, you might think, oh, they're just going to sit there talking about serial killers and what they got up to. Couldn't be further from the truth. It's really about what goes on, how it impacts the victims, how the investigations are carried out. It's educational as much as anything.
GB News, the People's Channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Will, please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons,
Very, very curious.
we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Well, bombshell news coming up in just a second. Let's have a look at tomorrow's front pages. A few more have come in, and we've got the Daily Star Sunday. Elvis has not left the building. King of rock and roll would regularly visit his tragic daughter from beyond the grave. Sunday Times now. Alex Salmond, titan of Scottish independence, dies aged 69. Attorney General is dragged into Taylor Swift police escort row. And a fortress and a target inside the hospital Hezbollah tried to destroy. And here is the big showbiz reveal in The Sun on Sunday. I'm a Celeb exclusive. Biggest deal in the show's history. Wayne Rooney's wife, Colleen Rooney, will pocket over £1.5 million to appear on the next series of I'm a Celebrity. The headline, Colleen of the Jungle. She'll make more than Nigel Farage when he headed for Australia. Well, let's get reaction from my brilliant pundits tonight. We have Fleur Elizabeth, Nina Mishkov and Neil Wallace. Well, Fleur, what a story. Colleen goes into the jungle on more money than Nigel Farage. She doesn't need the money, does she?
No, I mean, famously, wags have a very nice lifestyle without doing very much work.
And she just pocketed another £1 million from that libel case with Rebecca Vardy.
The pair of them are ridiculous. The pair of them. I mean, it's too much money and not enough brains, the pair. It's ridiculous.
Well, Rebecca Vardy and Colleen Rooney.
Of them.
But what do you make of this bumper deal? Will people watch because Colleen Rooney's on the show?
Yes, they will. Of course they will. But on the other hand, I think she should go on there to get away from her boring potato-head husband.
Oh, that's a bit harsh. Now, you shook your head when I asked whether people would watch for Colleen Rooney. You're not so sure, Fleur?
She's not that big, at least not in my generation. I don't think we care about people like that. The amount of viewers that Farage brought in, though, in the stolen vote. Just kidding.
Is it a bit of an act of desperation to get someone like Colleen on and spend that much money?
I mean, it does tend to be a show for people whose careers are past their best. You know, who was it?
Would you include Nigel in that
I wouldn't include
appraisal?
Nigel. That was Nigel just before his best. But, yeah.
Now, he uses a massive publicity stunt. I mean, you could not buy that publicity.
Do you think ITV are wasting their money on Colleen Rooney? It's a lot of cash, isn't it, Nina?
Will they get their money back? I don't. I mean, I care nothing for football, and I really have no time for people like Colleen. So
what do you think, Neil? I mean, you've edited red top newspapers. It's the front page of The Sun on Sunday. Is this big news?
It's a great newspaper story. I tend to side with you, actually. I'm not sure she's going to get that many people tuning on because she hasn't really got a sort of big public personality.
Or a personality full stop.
So, well, you might be right. I mean, we don't know, do we?
I think you're being a bit harsh, Nina. I mean, this is quite a famous woman. She's had endorsements from Asda and, you know...
She's only famous because her husband has an ability to kick a ball with his foot.
Well, she's got a lovely family and she has managed to have a career outside of football as a model and as a fashion designer and indeed charity work as well.
I think
she's a thinking man's Posh Spice, isn't she?
Oh no, I'm afraid you've got that completely wrong. I think what you do have to remember is a programme like this depends on it being on this front page. I'm a Celebrity has been going on for how long now? 15 years? I mean, you must have been...
Longer than that.
Yeah, maybe as long as I have been.
Yeah. So, you know, that's 18 years.
I'm flattered.
But quite seriously, where do you find a huge personality, a huge name that will get you this sort of coverage? Who would we be? Who would be talking?
Well, by the way, the show's been running for 22 years.
Would we be talking about? Who else would we be talking about if it wasn't somebody of this level at this time?
But is the story the money being spent rather than the person at the heart of it, which is Colleen Rooney?
Well, the two come together, don't they? But it shows how they are desperate for big hitters.
Does it tell us that the show's running out of steam, Neil? Because in the old days, you didn't really need to splash the cash because people watched it anyway.
That is so true. People were desperate, to be honest, because as Nina quite rightly said, you know, it's a show for has-beens that people went on to try to revive their careers. Apart from someone like Nigel Farage, who saw it for the opportunity it was at that time. But
they asked me...
Colleen Rooney has no... What? They asked you to go on?
On the second show, the second series, that I was up for that. They asked me if I'd consider going, and I got down to the last two, and Toya Wilcox got it.
Is that they're lost, frankly.
I'd
much rather watch you in the jungle because you're feisty. You're scarier than the snakes.
Mind you, but did you see Toya on Strictly? She was absolutely dreadful.
She was pretty outrageous on that. Though these reality shows, I mean, do you think reality TV has I don't know, has it had its day? Does it excite you, this kind of programme, Fleur?
It definitely has had its day. I think that even Love Island, which is one of the newer ones, had its peak when it was much more natural. People are so aware of what they're going on to now, and they're so aware that how they come across is very important. But Love Island, when it started, people were genuinely going on to find love. They were allowed to smoke on screen, and they had much more natural conversations. And now they go in with, I'm going to get through this, get a brand deal, get a house. This will kickstart my influencer career. And it's boring because you know that none of it's authentic at all.
No. Neil, before we go, Ed Miliband wastes cash on net zero pylon blight. Do you think net zero is this government's next car crash in slow motion?
I think exactly that. I'm not sure about slow motion. I think they're heading for the buffers at a fair old rate, to be honest, and quite right too. It was so interesting. The former Labour Party guy you had
Matthew
Talbot. He was absolutely fascinating because what he was saying is what most of our viewers, I think, would think. You need a mix of things. Yeah. But this obsession, they're going to put £7 billion into this Great British Energy as a startup. And spend it on what? They don't know yet.
Well, of course, Labour would argue that it's about creating green renewables so that we have energy independence. But it's all about opinions, isn't it? Thank you so much to Fleur. Brilliant first show. Please come back soon. The fabulous Nina Mishkov and indeed Neil Wallace. Folks, a very big show tomorrow. On Mark Dolan tonight from 9. Kemi Batenot-Backer, Andrew Bowie MP, gives his views on what's happening and why she should win. Anne Widdecombe live from Devon and much more. My big opinion take at 10. I'll see you at 9. Headliners is next.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. We've got plenty of fine weather in store across the UK over the next day or so, but as we head into the new working week, things will turn more unsettled. We'll see some rain developing at times, but all the while, those temperatures starting to climb as well. At the moment, low pressure is moving off the scene out into the North Sea. That's allowing a ridge of high pressure to build in from the west, so things starting to quieten down, but a bit of a chilly northerly breeze developing as well. And certainly as we go into the overnight period, we'll hold on to quite a few showers in that northerly airstream across the north and northeast of the UK. Some wintry showers across the high ground in Scotland, but things will start to quieten down from the west as that ridge of high pressure builds in. Lots of clear weather developing, and certainly by the morning on Sunday, a touch of frost forming, particularly across the north of the UK where temperatures will dip below freezing. As for Sunday itself, then we'll get off to a pretty showery start again, once up towards the north and northeast of Scotland. Again, a few of those showers a little bit on the wintry side across the mountains. Quite a keen northwesterly breeze still blowing here too. Further south across southwest Scotland into Northern Ireland and the north of England, mostly fine. Plenty of sunshine, although some high clouds starting to come in across Northern Ireland, turning that sunshine a little bit hazy. Quite hazy the sunshine too across parts of Wales and southwest England. So the best of the sunshine to start the day generally the further east you go. And we hold on to quite a bit of sunshine across many eastern parts of the UK through the day on Sunday. The showers in the far northeast tend to fade away. That brisk wind also easing through the day. But notice out towards the west, clouds starting to come in from the west there. And we'll start to see some patchy rain developing across parts of Northern Ireland and the west of Scotland by the very end of the day on Sunday. A chilly day up and down the country, highs no better than 7 to 9 Celsius in the north, perhaps up to 11 or 12 at best towards the south and southwest. As for Monday, well, a very unsettled day developing across the south of the UK. Cloudy skies, outbreaks of rain, especially during the morning. Rain towards the northwest starting to ease. All in all, things improving into the afternoon, the rain in the south easing, skies starting to brighten elsewhere. Things are turning generally unsettled into the coming week. Rain at times, but notice those temperatures also on the climb up to the high teens in Celsius.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
There's only 2 weeks.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
The former royal correspondent for the Sun newspaper, Charles Ray. Good to see you this morning, Charles, and so good to see Catherine back to work with a hug.
It is. It's fantastic. I mean, there are a few royal jobs that, touch at the heartstrings.